On the breakdown tonight, the Black Ferns dominate the Women's Rugby Super Series in San Diego. The new All Blacks look to dominate Argentina as the Rugby Championship begins. Plus, Goldie sits down with All Black prop Angus Ta'avao, and Shield fever is back. The Thames Valley Swamp Foxes and their mission to wrestle the log of wood off Otago. It's the breakdown.
G'day, welcome into the breakdown. I'm Jeff McTainch, and great to have your company tonight in for Jeff Wilson, who's of course over in Argentina ahead of this weekend's Test match. With me today on the panel, Ali Williams from All Black, Richard Turner and dual international Honey Hidamere. Great to see you all. I must say though, Ali, you look a bit bleary-eyed after no doubt a bit of lack of sleep on Monday.
It's been a tricky old week, mate. I mean, it just frustrates me that the Poms can draw a match and then still claim victory. I mean, it was a draw in both segments. It's ridiculous. As long as we win this one, they can win this one, we'll take the next one.
What do you think, Pod? Have you recovered?
No, I haven't. I haven't recovered emotionally or physically from it. But I think you know when it all settles down, it's a hell of a game of cricket at the end of the day. So it was a special thing to watch. Well, unfortunately, we didn't end up with a trophy. We didn't lose the game. There's the good news. Yeah. But we didn't end up coming home with a trophy. So.
Now, Honey, you didn't watch the whole game, did you? Did you watch any of it?
I didn't watch any of it. I'm over the cricket. I was more interested in 3 hours, literally 3 hours after the Black Caps lost, the Black Ferns beat England. That's much more important.
Now, you sent a fairly diplomatic tweet out, didn't you? You were going to say something else, but you kept it pretty...
Yeah, I kept it pretty PC, but, you know, I mean, it was a shame for the Black Caps. I mean, really it was a dull day for New Zealand, and, you know, it was nice to see the whole country get behind them.
You've all played at the highest level. Just want to ask you quickly, Ali, how do you think this team will be dealing with that and moving forward?
At the moment, I don't think they'll be thinking straight if we're tracking back on professional history. I think they're surely going to have a few quiet beers. But I think they'll be gutted, to be honest, because if you look at the letters of the law, there were elements in that game that they probably should have, you know, we could have won the game. But I think you still come back through the experience of the whole thing and you say, well, you know, we did pretty well, lads, considering. And, you know, lifelong friendships get made in situations like that. So I think overall they'll be happy, but once again, silverware is what everyone wants.
Yeah, a few people catching up on sleep this week, that is for sure. Right, let's head now to Steph Langridge and see what's been making rugby news. Steph.
Thanks, Jeff. And good news for the Black Ferns over the weekend, and we finally know what Beauden Barrett's plans are for next year.
In news this week, informed Springbok winger Apifi Dianti has suffered a hamstring injury and will miss the Rugby Championship. He should be available for Rugby World Cup selection. The Black Ferns have won the Women's Super Series in San Diego over the weekend, beating England in the final game 28-15. Australian prop Taniela Tupou was robbed of his phone whilst on tour with the Wallabies in Johannesburg. The 130 kg prop attempted to chase down the thief but failed. And new details of Beauden Barrett's contract with the Blues have been revealed. The deal features an overseas playing sabbatical that he is expected to exercise post-Rugby World Cup.
Yes, so a massive congratulations to the Black Ferns over the weekend. So England may have won that Cricket World Cup, but they were no match for our Black Ferns. Now, the other Jeff is over in Argentina at the moment. Now, to prove that he's actually doing some work, he's sent us this.
Buenos dias from Buenos Aires. Yes, buenos noches to everyone at home at the breakdown. Well, it is on. Super Rugby is finally gone. It is done and dusted. It is all about the All Blacks now. It's Argentina, the Pumas this weekend here at home against them. And I'll tell you what, I think this All Black team is looking towards this challenge. If they've made this 39, 41 in total, if you're part of that squad, you've got a chance of going to a Rugby World Cup this year, and it all starts now. There are just 4 test matches before they name a Rugby World Cup squad. You get a sense. There's an intensity about this group. They're working hard. They're preparing to play in what is an important test match to start their season. And of course, the performance of the Jaguares in Super Rugby gives great hope to this Pumas team. Can they finally find a way to beat the All Blacks for the very, very first time? Tell you what, the weather's going to be perfect on Saturday. It's going to be a beautiful day. It's going to be some great action, and it could be the first time. You just never know. The Pumas could beat the All Blacks. But the All Blacks will want to start their 2019 campaign on a high. Jeff, I'm sure you've got everything under control. Do your very best to get some sense out of Ali. As always on the show, looking forward to catching up with everyone next week when I'm back.
To get some sense out of you, are you surprised he wasn't A, in a restaurant and B, with a steak in front of him and a cab sav?
Look at him hot dogging in his tidy black polo in front of a B and an A sign. I mean, seriously, well, it's so much better having a decent host that really steers a program.
Oh, thanks, mate. I appreciate it.
So
well, as Honey mentioned earlier, there was another game in the wee smalls on Monday morning. It was the Black Ferns playing England in the Women's Super Series, and they prevailed in the decider, 28 points to 13. Honey, given the way they started the tournament, I think it was 3 games in 8 days, to come back and put an effort in like that against England was pretty special.
Yeah, it was pretty special, and it was a tough ask for the girls, and they knew that going over. And not forgetting that 2 of these teams, they're part of the Super Series, are full-time professionals. A lot of the Black Ferns girls, they had a handful of club games before going over, as well as maybe 3 or 4 camps, 2 or 3 days before in camp before flying out. So they done it tough there, but, you know, it's great to see that they came away with the result at the end and retained the world #1 ranking.
Paul, they had a breather before that game against England, but 3 games in 8 days. Have you played 3 games of footy in 8 days?
Not since I was 5, Jeff. I think, and then I struggled. But look, I mean, not only a Super Series by name, but also by nature. They're the top 5 teams in the world. Yep. I mean, a great opportunity. There's no doubt about that, and I think that was probably the most exciting thing for them, to get some game time. And they toughed it out those 3 games, and they had a hiccup in the middle there against France. And I think, Honey would say that that's probably a reflection of that tough schedule. Then they had their time to recover. As most professional athletes do, and then they came back to their very best. So
But a lot of players early with energy. Renee Whitcliffe scored 3 tries against England, but great on distribution was Kendra Coxedge, 45 points across the tournament, just a live wire, and a player like players you've played with, they just seem to have more time, the special ones. Yeah,
she's a special human being. I mean, her time on the ball is one of those elements that great players have. She has that ability to weigh up a situation and go with the right move. I mean, she barks the troops around, she gets them around the field, and then she also sort of, when the timing's right, she sparks them into action. And look, I think, going back and touching on that schedule, it's just so tricky. If the women are moving into professional rugby to yet be asked to play 3 games in 8 days, you're thinking, well, yes, you're giving us half of the apple, but give us the other half and give us some rest and recovery to do something. I mean, she is a rock star. Look at her go here. Started that. So that's great, though. It's great to see they're still on the top of the table and they're charging forward and everyone's improving and the likes.
Glenmore had a number of rookies, Honey, in this squad. He's got to cut it down from 30 to 28 for the 2 tests to come against Australia in August. So he's going to have a hard time doing that. But Pia Tapsell, one player that stood out for you. Oh, yeah, absolutely. She had some big shoes to fill. She started the tournament at number 8, and then they shifted her to 6. And when I say big shoes to fill, she had to fill the shoes of the likes of Aroha Savage and Linda Aitunu, who had previously played in those positions, but she really dominated and owned that position. What I liked is the depth that Glenmore went with. He took 10 rookies over. I think almost all of them got some field time out there, and really he gave them all opportunity and backed them, and I think that was great for them to still then again go out and dominate that whole Super Series. Yeah, it's amazing with rookies, isn't it? You can chuck them in the mixer, and all of a sudden they find new energy, new life, and they think, this jersey's designed for me, or this jersey's actually quite scary and I don't really want to be here. And it's regardless of what grade of rugby you're talking to. When you go up that next division, that's what inspires those players to get better and better. And it's good to see some of the younger women climbing up the ranks and saying, yeah, I really want to be part of this new generation of women's rugby. We saw the English team are a very good side. Emily Scarrett's one of those players in that team that had a great tournament. But when you don't get to play the English as often as other teams, Pod, how much of a psychological blow is this for the Black Ferns, knowing that the end goal really is 2021, defend the World Cup? Last time they played, the English was in the final in 2017. Yeah, clearly, I mean, Honey alluded to the 2 of them that were full-time, and the English are one of them. They've got a heck of a program.
So they throw a lot of resource at it. So yeah, it's a big psychological blow when we turn up, not having played a lot of footy, we get over there and we put them to bed as comfortably as we did. I think that will sow a massive seed of doubt in those English players' minds. Then going back to that, Ali's point, and I think that's the thing I enjoyed most about this tournament is the development of those rookies through 4 games. Capsule we mentioned, and I think that's what is going to be the biggest benefit of that tournament, and the tournament will continue for our girls is their continued development of game time.
Well, keeping Glenn Moore and his coach as part of New Zealand Rugby's plan to make sure that there is that continued success. Honey, what is the attractive part of Glenn as a coach? What are you hearing back from some of the players, the way he does things?
Oh, I think he's brutally honest, first and foremost, and he genuinely wants to bring the best out of players as well. He invests time into develop you in your specific role. And he just puts some belief in you as well. He's willing to take the risk and develop these new players and give them time on the field. And not to mention, they've got a lot of experience around them. With the amount of games that the girls are getting now, we saw throughout the Super Series, we saw the likes of Kendra top of 50 caps. We saw the likes of Kelly Brazier, Eloise Blackwell also get 40 caps. And that's a lot of caps in the women's game, because previously they may have only had 1 or 2 games a year. Now they're getting 5 or 6. So it's pretty big milestones.
What do you make of them playing 3 games in 8 days, Ali? Have you done that?
That's ridiculous. Ridiculous. I've never done it. I played 4 games. 4 games of soccer in 24 hours. But I mean, it's just ludicrous to get the best out of an individual or a professional sports person playing that amount of minutes in that amount of time. It's just too hard. So next year, I'm sure they'll get a bit more time in the cabanas and just laying back some R&R.
That sounds good. Well, a team that didn't really get a lot of time together after the Super season to prepare for Fiji were the Maori All Blacks, and they went down to Fiji in Suva 27 points to 10. It was the first time Fiji had beaten them in 62 years, so a big result for the Fijians. Did you expect more, Pod, out of the Maori All Blacks, given the Super season that these players had to go over to Suva and be upset?
Well, yeah, I mean, put all that aside, you always have high expectations of this Māori side because yeah, as a rule, they go out and over the years we've watched them beat some very good opponents. This was a massive surprise to me. I sat down parked up ready to watch an entertaining game. It was certainly that. It was very entertaining, but the end result was a big surprise for me. But yeah, maybe we can analyse the death out of the Māori performance, but I think maybe an acknowledgement that the Fijians have come a long way in that 15s game.
Ali, defensively, the Maori All Blacks looked a bit out of sorts, and the missed tackle count was huge for them.
Yeah, I think what we think it was 49 tackles or something they missed, most of them in the first half. I mean, it's just too hard to win a game of rugby if you're missing tackles like that. So, I mean, yes, I'm with Pod. We want to see some flair, we want to see some excitement, we want to see that sort of Māori culture come through, but you also want to see them win. And, to not nail your basic skills like tackling, that's the frustrating part for a coach and also for a player that wants to push himself for higher honours, because it is still a launching platform for higher honours. So, yeah, frustrating, but I'm with Pod as well. Look, the Fijians, you can never write them off. They've got something in that DNA that makes them tricky every day of the week.
One thing in that DNA, Honey, traditionally is the way they play in the back line. Without doubt, a lot of flair, but certainly the forwards the last few years, and they had a lot of their overseas players back. Loli Nakarewa was one of them, 6'6", 110 kilos. He's won a gold medal in sevens, so these guys can move, these forwards. Yeah,
absolutely. It's like playing 15 Jonah Lomus, and, I think what the Māoris did is they just really struggled to adapt to the Fijian style of rugby. It was an entertaining and exciting game. And you'd love to see actually Super Rugby teams play like Fiji play. The offload game is what really killed the Maori All Blacks in this, and it's typical Fiji style. Also, the heat could have been. It seemed like they're in the middle of the day in the middle of Suva. So
I think when I watched that game, the big improvement was at set piece for the Fijians, and we talked about those guys that come out of Europe. So those guys are now playing their trade at the best level of the game, tight forwards wise, and they're coming back into that international environment. And that's where they've lacked it. They've always had the flair, but they've lacked the ability to compete at set piece, and particularly around scrum times. That was a massive improvement for me, and I think that was a foundation for their success.
Yeah, well, they struggle with the structure, isn't it? You know, their lifestyle is very loose and thing. I played with Leone Nakatawa in Paris, and his ability to hold a ball in one hand, run across the field, and sort of just throw it when it can't be thrown is unbelievable. And I tell you, the other thing that what really impressed me about the Fijian rugby is their fitness levels. They're getting more and more endurance athletes in the tight forward. You know, they don't have 40 minutes or one good sprint in them. They've got a lot of rugby in them over that 80 minutes. And, you know, the European style is helping them. Let's just see if you can tie them a bit more.
Their tidy prop, I can't remember his name, but he went 80 minutes.
Yeah.
You know, which is unheard of for a Fijian tight forward, you know.
Or just a tight prop, mate. It's unheard of all day long.
Just quickly on this again, Honey, they've got Wales and Australia in their World Cup pool later this year, Fiji. I mean, given the way they played against the Maori All Blacks, you know, peppered with super players and whatnot, they'll be confident in making it out of that group.
Yeah, 100%. I think they're going to go into the World Cup, you know, really quite confident, knowing that they've done the work, they've run a whole lot of sand dunes, as you can see, with their fitness conditions, as Ali mentioned. And so, you know, this win over the Maori All Blacks, which the last time they beat them was 62 years ago. So this is huge confidence booster for them as they head into the World Cup.
And they are playing second-ranked teams in Australia, so, you know, I'm completely with you, thinking that they'll progress next.
Right.
Australia's a shambles, aren't they? Let's be honest.
Australia's a shambles, OK. Rightio, well, let's have a look at the games coming up this weekend. Maori All Blacks against Fiji. Of course, that's at 7 o'clock, the return leg in Rotorua. And the earlier game, the curtain raiser, that's the under-20s against the Fijian under-20s. Well, a player who made a mark on the scene with the New Zealand under-20s is Beauden Barrett. And, of course, the big news over the past week is that he's made a 4-year deal at the Blues. Ali's got a big smile on his face. I've heard a lot of people say that the Blues have been waiting for a player like Carlos Spencer since then to come and pull the strings. Is he the missing piece of the puzzle?
It's definitely our year. I mean, signing Beauden Barrett for all that money. I mean, the trophy's almost ours.
Give it to them now.
Look, you understand the reasons. You know where Beauden is personally in terms of what he's doing with his family and the likes, and the move to Auckland was inevitable, and signing with the Blues is great. To me, I look at it and say, OK, great, you can't bring one man here and expect him to change the fortunes. I think who are the people around him that are going to evolve him to create this as a new challenge rather than a burden? Because if we put all the pressure on him and say, righto, kid, go and win it for us, it's just never going to happen. Where does he sit in terms of his time and his true passion to allocate to the Blues is an interesting element because of his sort of side deals. But look, we're definitely not worse off with signing him, but I would like to see a bit more structure put around that signing and see what other players we can get around them.
So Perafita, Plummer and the like, or Teddy Black, Honey, they've got options. Leo McDonald has some options, and there's talk that Beauden Barrett might not actually play till the latter part of the season as part of his contract. So just where these other guys at 5'8" fit in will be interesting. Yeah,
well, it is going to be interesting, and if he does head offshore come next year, then really it's about them trying to fight for that spot, whether one of them plays 10 and Bodie goes to 15. It's going to be a bit of a jigsaw, really. And Milani Nanai pod is heading off to Worcester, so there is that spot at 15. You put a pair of feet back there, or as Honey said, maybe if Beauden comes back.
Is Geordie coming?
Is Geordie coming? OK, well, this might be
exclusive. It's a family package, all right. There's more to come out of this story, trust me.
Well, you were saying if John Kerwin's got anything to do with it, Geordie's coming, isn't he?
There's definitely more to come out of this story. You can't have 7 family members in the Barrett family and one just come to the Blues, you know. They're all going to come.
What about the oil that he...
Even Smiley's going to come out of the tractor and he's going to start coaching them, mate.
He's going to sell the farm and buy an apartment in downtown Auckland. No.
So well, there was talk that maybe he'd go down and play with Scott in Canterbury.
No, Scott's coming too.
Scott's coming as well.
Let's get them all, mate. Let's get them all.
They're going to get Kane back as well.
But
Kane was a great member of the Blues.
Going back to your point, I think of the three 10s I've got, I think Perafita's probably the obvious one to go to fullback. And you know, I've watched Perafita from schoolboy stuff, and he's played a lot of rugby at 15. And I think you know, there's just the more time and space that he has back there is probably his better position. So there's the obvious move for me. Beauden at 10 and Perafita to 15. It's what you do with the other two.
This is the obvious move for me. Is you've got a guy by the name of Richie Mo'unga who's 10, he's going to be outstanding. We already know that. He's going to be 10 for the All Blacks. Beauden Barrett is going to go back to 15. He's going to play at 15 for the Blues. Harry Plummer is going to play at 10, and they're going to play a dual 10 role for the Blues.
It's got it all mapped out.
And Beauden Barrett will be 15 for the next 4 years for the All Blacks.
There you go. It's you've heard it first.
Ben Smith's gone, mate.
Ali Williams.
Ben from accounts is out.
Okay, there you go. Ben,
signed off.
Hey, Honey, he forged a pretty good partnership at the Hurricanes with TJ Perenara, 100 games. And Ali, as you said in the room earlier, you know, you do need a good guy inside you giving you the pill, Honey. So given that he's going to play with Sam Nock and Ruru, you know, next year or the year after, you know, doesn't have that familiar guy inside him, how much will that impact Beauden Barrett?
Yeah, I suppose it's where you want to see Bodie's leadership come through and help really develop that 9 position and whoever it is that's going to be delivering that ball to them. But also interesting to see where Otago Black now does. Does he now go and fill the space for the 10 jersey down for the Hurricanes?
We'll switch back and forth again.
Exactly.
Well, what does happen, Elliot, at the Hurricanes, because you've got, you know, he doesn't have a lot down there, does he? But James Marshall, Garden Bashop, Fletcher Smith has come on as well. But, you know, you're losing a guy like Beauden Barrett. It's been a big part of the way they've played the last few years.
Yeah, I mean, we saw TJ Perenara's role this year. He really stood up in terms of what the Hurricanes stand for and how they'll do it. I think a young 10 can go into the Hurricanes and perform well because of the platform that TJ presents. I think if you're a 10 around New Zealand, you're looking at it as an opportunity to say, look, here's my hand up. I'd love to move down and play outside of TJ.
Is it a case, though, of the guys that are already there potentially getting better now, you know, like Fletcher Smith, that he's going to have more game time with
that
TJ?
100%. I mean, he was very good at the tail end of the season when he had his opportunities off the bench. Fletcher Smith. So yeah, that's you know they've signed those guys because they're good footballers, and yeah, a guy, you know, as you say, Ali, you stick a good 10 outside TJ Perenara for the season, and he might end up being a very, very good 10
so
by the end of it.
The title's coming home. You've picked it, have you?
He's made the cabinet.
He's made the call.
Oh, I'm already building it, mate. I've invested in myself.
Rightio, Ali's called it. The Blues are going to win it under Beauden Barrett. Right, we'll take a short break here on The Breakdown, and we'll see you soon. Yes, a bit of colour from Argentina. Of course, the match this weekend, the All Blacks against the Pumas. 5:30 on Sunday morning, live and exclusive on Sky Sport 1. 39-man squad. Ali, you were at the squad naming with Steve Hansen and co. Given that he's left 8-odd Crusaders behind for this one, what do you expect out of the first Rugby Championship test of the season?
Well, I mean, you put on the All Black jersey and we all expect them to win, don't we? So, I mean, that's first and foremost is the win. And then secondly, I think he wants to see individuals stand up, ones that are, you know, on the fringes per se in terms of his main squad. And then I think, thirdly, he wants to see the team buy into the execution of what he's trying to play around attack and defence. So exciting.
One of those things that he talked about, Ali Pod, in the squad announcement was dealing with defensive line speed from the opposition. First test of the year for them at the Rugby Championship. Are we expecting to see the finished product?
No, it certainly won't be the finished product, but you'd like to think you'd see something that is a nod towards that. I mean, it's something we've struggled with at all levels. You know, even at Super Rugby levels, we've struggled against that defensive line speed of the opposition. You know, I think what we might see from them is actually better utilisation of our 9 and 10 to get across the game line, because if you go looking for points of difference in our All Black team, and I think a significant one is the speed that we've got in the 9 and 10 jerseys, but we don't really utilise it, and I think that's the opportunity. If you've got guys roaring up from the midfield out, and you've got 2 guys with super pace at 9 and 10, then I don't know, I'm not a coach though. So I'm just
Honey, Ben Smith, I actually read an article, he was talking about that, actually having guys on both sides of the ruck that can play the ball at first receiver. So maybe that's the way they want to go in their attack. Yeah,
well, it's always hard to really attack when you've got that sort of smothering line speed coming at you. But I think what the All Blacks do well, and especially their forwards, is the ability to shift the ball. You know, gone are the days where you get your props that can't catch or pass. You know, nowadays they're a lot more skilled skillful, and they're showing the ability to be able to get that ball wide, shift it across, and set things up.
Knowing Steve Hansen as well as I do, they'll be looking at this as an opportunity, the line speed, because if we track back to when they went to Europe, their forwards, their front rowers and their tight five didn't move the ball a lot. They wanted to see physically how they could handle each other, and we lost, blatantly lost. But it's always in the intentions of a tight forward player who plays in New Zealand is to move the ball. So what I wouldn't be surprised if you see the line speed, they encourage teams to have line speed, and they have more options within that first receiver being a front row or a second row. So to me, I think they're going to utilise the line speed of oppositions to get in behind them, or to actually stop them and create more running opportunities through the middle with either backs or forwards.
One player that's going to get a chance, Pod, is Josh Ioane. Had a great Super Rugby season at the Highlanders. Should get a crack. Luke Jacobson as well, but just on the guys that are going to get plenty of ball in hand, Josh will be relishing that in the All Blacks.
Oh, yeah, look, what a great opportunity for that kid. You know, it's you know, as Ali alluded to it before, you know, quite often you guys can fit into that environment, put the jersey on and feel really comfortable in it, because you're just surrounded by guys that are very good at doing what they do. So you essentially just have to worry about what you do well. And that's the opportunity for Josh if he gets out there, just to keep doing what he's done well all season. And it's going to be enhanced by the fact that he's surrounded by quality players. Yeah,
it's just exciting to see these young talents that come out of Super Rugby. I mean, yes, he played inside of Aaron Smith or outside Aaron Smith, but can you imagine him outside with Sonny Bill outside him, or a Ryan Crotty, to see what he can really do and have the comfort knowing that, hey, I don't have to do it all on my own, and I can use my my partners in crime. So it's exciting to see these young guys really push forward.
And just on that midfield, obviously Ngani Laumapi, Sonny Bill Williams, tight hamstring, may not play, but if that's the case, Ngani will slot into the midfield with Anton, Leonard Brown, and you've got Braden Ennell to cover the midfield. But another chance, Honey, for this bloke to really show what he can do. Yeah,
and that's exactly what it is. It's really Ngani trying to cement his spot in either a starting position, whether he locks down the 12 position or the bench position if Sonny's to come back, because you know there's so much talent there in that midfield, and we know what Ngani can offer. I'd actually like to see Ngani play on the wing. He's another Jonah Lomu type player. You saw what he did in the Test matches last year when he just bowled 3 or 4 players. So, but I mean, we've got a fair bit of depth in the wing position as well. So.
We are lucky, aren't we? There's players everywhere. It's unbelievable.
A bloke that's made a remarkable comeback, continues to make a great comeback, finished Super Rugby strongly. Sam Cane 9 months ago, lying in hospital, fractured neck. Kieran Reid isn't there, one of 8 Crusaders, but Sam Cane, good hands, and great to see him, Ali, take another step in the right direction. Yeah,
there's so many elements to Sam that, you know, we only see on the rugby field, but off the rugby field, he is an inspirational leader. His action, but also his ability to switch in and off, in and out, in terms of his intensity. Yes, off the field he can relax, and he enjoys the company of the players, and he enjoys the company of everyone to create that environment. The way that he came back and played after that injury is just a credit to him, all the work he's done, the people around him, because I reckon in that last 3 or 4 weeks he was one of the standout rugby players in that Super Rugby competition.
Still haven't stop cringing though every time he takes a big hit. You know, but as I say, credit to his work ethic to get back to the highest level of the game, and great that that his efforts have been rewarded with the skipper's armband on Saturday. So I think that's great reward for him.
Indeed. OK, let's head back. Goldie caught up with a man who should be up in the front row for the All Blacks this weekend. Angus Ta'avao caught up with Jeff Wilson in Buenos Aires.
It's a Rugby World Cup year.
Yeah, I mean, you see the way, even from when they asked the boys to make a shift, there was a massive shift. You know, the props were working hard off the ground, getting around the field, getting their hands on the ball, and I probably didn't necessarily watch them, with a close eye and sort of what are they doing, what am I not doing. It was more, what can I do better? How can I be better? How can I, make this a good 50 minutes or 30 minutes coming off the bench, and impact the game, as best as I could.
We've heard Steve Hansen talk about that focusing on going towards the challenge. Is that a mindset you've already seen from the guys who have been there before?
Yeah, and I think that's, you just need to look at me and Big Carlito. We last year, no contracts, and then injuries happened, and he had an awesome season. He's back in the mixer. I was lucky enough to pull on that black jersey. So.
Did you call him Carlito?
Yeah, Big Carlito.
Big Carlito.
Yeah.
I gotta like that.
He's got like your Spanish sort of moustache. You know,
Did you come up with that, or?
Actually, you know,
Yeah, you did. Oh, yeah.
Now everyone calls him that, but you know, I started it. But I think it just suits him. You know?
Yeah.
He's a big guy, loves his food and that sort of thing. But
portion sizes, he told me. I spoke to him last week. I caught up with him. Portion sizes is a secret, eh?
Yep. And you know, if you're still a bit hungry, just eat salad. Eat a bit more salad. That's the key.
That's the key?
Key.
All right, that's 101. All right, how much would it mean to you to go to a Rugby World Cup, represent the All Blacks, given all of the challenges you've faced right up until now?
I mean, that's the pinnacle of international rugby, isn't it? You know, it only happens every 4 years. Only, you know, a handful of players get to, you know, hoist that trophy up, or even just to be a part of it. So it would be massive for me and my family to know where I've sort of come from. I'm not getting any younger, Goldie, so...
you don't have to tell me that. Mate, you don't have to tell me that.
So it would be a massive honour, but, you know, all I can do now is just focus on this week and keep trying to build and keep putting my hand up.
Sure, bro.
Thanks, brother. All good? Yeah.
Yeah, great story, Angus Ta'avao. Ali, you're tight with Steve Hansen. What is it about this bloke that he likes so much?
First and foremost, is he the most educated looking and the most educatedly speaking front rower the world has ever seen?
Well, Anton Oliver was around for a while, who was...
Yeah, but he didn't look smart. He was smart. He was actually too smart, old Hatch. He was too smart. But Angus, you know, with that side wavy hair, he just looks so... Anyway, Shag, what does Shag like about him?
Yeah.
I think personally there is a set piece. He's a great lifter in the line-out. We all know that with his height. His scrum at tight head, he is rock solid, and he's really improved on that. But what I would say that the biggest advantage Angus has over everyone else is his work ethic and his involvement in the game. He is constantly on the move. He's the supporter. He almost runs a nines role when they break out wide. You got Angus coming through the middle. His work rate and his fitness levels are second to none, and I've challenged him over any other front.
But he also has that ability to play on the other side of the scrum too, which I know is a work on.
Yeah, definitely.
But I think it's a big feather in his cap, because there's not many. If you look in that environment, because they'll always take one. So that's probably the big fillip that he's got going for him, is that he has the ability to play on the other side. They always take at least one prop that can play both sides.
It's one of those areas, hey, it's going to be so difficult for the coaches heading towards Japan, because Joe Moody, Owen Franks won't be playing against Argentina, having a breather. But then, you know, Ta'avao, Mole, Laulala, Tuina Kuafi, Tonga Fasi, they've got options, and other guys that can play two sides as well.
Yeah, well, I think the difference that Angus does bring, and you talked about him looking smart, he actually is a very smart footballer, and he uses, you know, his experience and just the way he plays. Like, he just has the ability to read play a lot better than some of our other,
yeah, I mean,
you know, front rowers.
The front row is a very tightly fought contest, and, you know, you've also got to understand the injuries that can happen. So these guys, yes, they might not get in that initial squad, but if there is an injury, they need these guys to slip in straight away. So that's, I would say, why they got so many. I just think we're sport for choice in the front row, to be honest with you. I mean, they're all world-class players in their own right mind, if they get consistent game time.
You're just going to wonder very quickly, Pod, on this Test match, how Argentina are going to show up. A lot of Haguares obviously involved in the Super Final. All Blacks have had a wee bit of a break. 8 guys not playing, but they're going to be straight back in there, Test match cauldron.
Yeah, and that's probably going to be their biggest challenge, is the fact that they've come off, 18 straight in Super Rugby. And then they're going to front up a few days later in a test match environment. Conversely, I think we'll be looking to exploit that as well. That'll be one of the big areas we'll look to have a go at them.
Well, the Haguares were outstanding in Super Rugby this season, and it wasn't just their forward pack, of course, it was their back line as well. Big part of that in the Argentina side too. Let's take a look at their top 5 tries from the last international season.
Lavanini got the pass back, and again, good running lines. This is the new man. What an introduction to this test match for Santiago Gonzalez Iglesias.
Beautiful inside ball from Sanchez for Boffelli. Argentina must score here. It's Delgui into the corner. And some space on the left for Mojano now. Stepping brilliantly, Mojano. Ramiro Mojano scores the first try of the test, and it's a beauty.
Sanchez got it out to Pablo Matera. He opens them up. Matera with a great run. Can he link up with support up over halfway? And he pops it up brilliantly to Kramer over the top. They need a bounce and they get it. Delgi cutting back inside. Bautista Delgi. Argentine wingers have got spiders on them tonight.
We arrived yesterday afternoon, flew in from Auckland and then bussed on down. It was nice to have a sleep in actually, coming off a dairy farm. Quite a few farmers, some guys are landscapers, builders. It means making it to training can be difficult. Some of them are bosses and it costs a huge amount of money for them to take Friday off and Saturday off and to travel, so it is a big commitment for these boys. But that just goes to show how much it means to them to play for the Swamp Foxes. Our Heartland season was amazing last year. I think the only thing you could do to do better would be to win the Ranfurly Shield.
Thames Valley will win the Meads Cup.
Set out some goals at the start of the year to win the Meads Cup, and we truly believe that we could go out and do it. The TAB definitely didn't think we could do it. We haven't had the most success in recent years, and for them to see us go and knock Wanganui over in the semi-final and then upset South Canterbury also in the final for Thames Valley Rugby, it's been huge, and for the area as well, it's been great.
Yeah, so just go through all of our options. We're getting better and better on all these, so really accurate and nail it.
As we know, rugby's sort of starting to not become the most important thing in people's lives these days, and I think if the Ranfurly Shield could go down to Heartland Rugby, what a huge boost it would be for Heartland Rugby. I don't think any of the club rugby would continue after it. The boys would be celebrating too much, but it would be huge. What great viewing, and the crowds would be huge as well to go and watch. So it'd be a real good revival of the game and revival of the Shield as well.
Yeah, most of us come down yesterday, flew down in the morning. Original, there was 3,000 tickets got sold and 1,000 got sold up our end of the country, so there's going to be a lot of supporters from the valley.
We've heard that the TAB has given Thames Valley 52-point start.
Well, I'm streaking if they win. No, skinny dipping if they win.
It's a big challenge for them, but at the end of the day, if we keep it close, then we've got to be good value. Good value.
You notice we put the chairs out a little bit more formal because the day's starting to get closer to when we want to switch on, when we want to focus. Raf?
For Otago, it's just another game for them. Nothing exceptional really. But what it means to Thames Valley Rugby, what it means to us, this game could simply change your lives. So just go for it.
Yeah, there's a little bit of nerves around, but I think we're just really going to enjoy the occasion, and I'm really looking forward to seeing where we sit against the top Mitre 10 Cup teams. And hey, we want to lift the Ranfurly Shield. That's what we set out to do. We didn't want to come here to make up numbers. We want to win the Ranfurly Shield, and we want to take it back to Thames Valley.
Get up, Valley! Foxes up!
Get up, Swampy!
Go the Swamp Foxes! Woo!
There's hundreds of us from the valley.
4 plane loads.
We're from a little town called Kirapehi and Waitakaruru.
We've come from Whitianga. We came this week up from the Thames Valley, up in Hamilton and Te Aroha and all those sorts of places. We're having a lovely time, lots of beer and wine, and we've got a huge crowd here, so we're all in for a big party, regardless of the result.
Thames Valley is a very small union. We've had quite a few Shield challenges, but we've never won one, and the scores are getting progressively bigger. But that's normal in rugby in New Zealand at the moment. It's very difficult for the Heartland boys to match the big brothers.
It's been a great experience so far for me and the family. We live on the shore in Whangamata. Beautiful place. I wanted to experience grassroots rugby to find out more about the New Zealand rugby and share my knowledge. I'm really looking forward to that game because I know it's a special event. It's a special occasion for the boys, and from a French perspective, it's something I never experienced. So I'm really looking forward to it.
My heart wants them to win, but you know, up here I'm wary how good Otago have been, and they're a different level to us. But you never know. India thought they were going to beat the Black Caps, so.
Now Borton sends in a big gap here, and a try over the post. For Lapi to Anahi. Game on! They've slipped it back to Pole, and the hooker goes for the line. Otago do get a vital try. Thames Valley leading Otago. by 13 points to 7.
Great first half for the boys. Yeah, they can be proud of that effort.
I think we're going to take it out here.
It was very good. They're really punching above their weight.
Give yourselves an opportunity. Let's go. Swap is out!
The inside pass goes, and the offload goes, and the Stars scored. Otago finally in front in the game.
Is this strip play on?
Now here's Vanis, looks to pop it up. Here's an intercept. Here goes the try scorer in the first half, Luffy, and he's in again. Wow! 2 tries in a Ranfurly Shield challenge. White and Hammer hands it away, and the skipper will score the final try, and Otago have successfully defended the Shield. 41 points to 21. It hasn't been easy for them though. It was a valiant Thames Valley.
Spread yourself, sit down, get it up. Valley, 3-2 Otago. Hoop, right, one for the leg, hoop, right.
That was outstanding. We're so proud of the boys and how they turned on such a wonderful performance for us. They've broken new ground. We're representing all the Heartland unions, and this effort today sort of represents the effort that all the Heartland teams put in.
Oh, what an awesome experience, you know, especially the first half of the game. I really thought we could have won the Ranfurly Shield. That would have been amazing. And see how much it means to everybody here and the Valley supporters, and it meant the same to us as the players. So unfortunately, we didn't come away with the result we wanted, but we're proud of ourselves no matter what.
Wonderful story, the Swamp Foxes, not quite getting it done in the end. 41-21 Otago, the first defence of the Shield this season. Potter, spoke to you earlier in the day. It's just great to see a story like this and turn up the Swamp Foxes and give them a real run up until half-time.
Absolutely, and you know what I liked about that story is they actually had genuine belief. It wasn't just hearsay. They weren't just making that up. They actually went down there with a genuine desire to come home with the Ranfurly Shield. You know, fabulous occasion, and you know, I think that's what's everything that's great about the game in this country is when you see it played like that in that environment too.
Yeah, I was actually down there. Didn't watch the match. I was on a wine tour, but.
Are you still suffering now?
Both great results. But then, you know, it had like international flair. I mean, you got Rafael Ibanez who's there. I mean, that guy is a legend, a human legend, and he's come down to the Swamp Foxes to gain experience off one of our, you know, Heartland teams. I mean, it just goes to show the strength of our rugby. It goes to show our culture. It goes to show our passion. And then you sum it up with a game like that. Pretty special country to play rugby in.
Honey, it's great, isn't it, that, you know, these guys have 9-to-5 jobs and that, you know, in that story we saw they have to ask the bosses, can I get the time off and go down? But to be in a game against a professional side like Otago for most of it and then maybe just fall away to the back, it just shows how close potentially it is getting in some areas. As Ali says, you've got Rafael Ibanez coming over, people are invested in that tier of our game.
Yeah, and what I liked about, you know, that was actually the whole community followed them down to Wanaka to actually show their support, and often, you know, these unions are the kind of forgotten ones. And in fact, they had some really good standout players in the Swamp Foxes. The 10, I think he was, Broughton, he kicked like three conversions from 50 metres plus back there. So, you know, those opportunities for players like him to stand up and say, hey, look, you know, have a look at me for Mighty 10 Cup, Super Rugby, whatever it might be.
So, Potter, Otago have Southland, their first Shield defence of the Mighty 10 Cup season. They'll be thinking, it's actually not a bad workout first up in the old Swamp Foxes.
Oh, look, they got a genuine workout. They absolutely got a genuine workout. And I think, you know, you talk about the difference between a fully professional team, so a team that trains all day, every day, and a team that trains Thursday and Friday. Yeah. And that was the only difference in that game, was the Thames Valley boys just fell away towards the end of it. But, man, it was a great contest.
When you look back, Ali, at some of the rugby you played before Super and the All Blacks and so on and so forth, does that sort of bring back what it means to play that rugby at grassroots?
Yeah, well, for all of you? Actually, one of my first games was against the Swamp Foxes for Auckland in a pre-season game, and I think it just goes to show that, you know, there is a natural progression in New Zealand rugby to get to higher honours, and it is starting with games like this and teams like this, because they are the backbone of our rugby landscape in New Zealand. And, you know, also the supporters. You know, what do they say? 1,000 tickets or 3,000 tickets been sold. 1,000 were from Thames Valley, and they were the ones flying up. I mean, you know, that's a bit of loot to chuck around to go up there or down there for a weekend. So it's all alive and kicking.
We can't all do wine tours, mate, when we're down in Central.
Oh, no, they were touring me.
He scalped,
it's free.
He scalped his Ranfurly Shield tickets. That's what paid for the wine tour.
Not a silly man, mate. Not a silly man.
Looking at Otago, though, they do have a peppering a Super Rugby experience for the season. Ben Herring and guys like Joina Ngareki as well that come in from the sevens too. So they'll be reasonable this year in Mitre 10. Yeah,
and look, and they've got, I guess, some teams look at it as the Ranfurly Shield, they've got to front up, for a number of games during the season. That can often be a little bit of a burden, but, they've got enough talent there, and they had enough talent to get that one across the line under difficult circumstances. But look, I just love this time of year. I can't wait for Mitre 10 Cup. It's certainly, without a doubt, my favourite competition, and can't wait for it to get going, basically.
People often talk, honey, about the diet of rugby we have during the year up till this point. I've had enough of it. I'm sick of footy for a while, but it doesn't take long, does it, till you start getting that parochial, provincial vibe back, and it's a great thing.
Yeah, exactly, and it's that provincial competition that really gives these players the opportunity to be spotted for higher honours, whether it be Super Rugby and things like that. And I mean, I'm really excited to see the Waikato boys come out. We've got Sevu back this year, so I think we'll probably end up with the Shield soon. As long as we don't take it out again.
Yeah, how do you think the Otago boys, Ali, would have celebrated after that one? Bit of sponsors product and a few stories that you don't really share for a while, I suppose?
Definitely a bit of sponsors product, but unfortunately, to be honest with you, they're just so professional these days in terms of what they can and can't do, And so, yes, there'll be a few quiet brewskis, but it's not like it used to be in terms of creating stories and the like. So professionalism is alive and well.
Has it changed a lot since you finished up?
Oh, well, that's why I retired.
He hasn't finished. Okay, the aftermatch, anyway.
This is the aftermatch, yeah. Rightio, let's head to the notice board now. And Steph, what have you got for us?
Thanks, Jeff. Yes, on the notice board this week, kickoff is on the road for the next 2 weeks. This week they're coming to you live from Auckland Marist Rugby Club, and that is in Panmure. And next week they're coming to you from Poneke Football Club in Wellington. Now, also on the notice board this week, Napier Tech are celebrating their centenary, but that's not happening until next year, so just pop it in your calendars for now. That's in April 2020. And finally, just before we go, we've run out of time to play it tonight, but here's a sneak peek at our local hero for next week, and that is Tom Blake from Havelock North.
Tom is a man who loves rugby, and when I say loves rugby, the passion just runs deep.
Yeah, boy!
You can't sort of talk about Havelock North Rugby without talking about Tom Blake. He's club president, he's been club captain, he's coached the Prems, managed the Prems, coached the Colts.
Great, certainly look forward to that one next week. Well, thanks for turning up tonight, guys. Great to have you with us on the show. Ali, you've got a shout out before we head off.
I wouldn't say a shout out, but just a prediction. I'm just saying.
Another one.
Well done to Ponsonby Rugby Club for winning the championship. Oh, it's actually the finals this weekend, but all the very best boys. I'm sure you'll.
So it's a premonition.
I've seen it, mate. I've already seen it for the 11th time in a row.
Geordie Barrett, I say that loud? One, Bowden Barrett. OK, Honey, what have you got for us?
Yeah, just a shout out to the Melville women's rugby team. Again, they've got their club championship. They're looking to go back to back, so they've got a really good coach. And I know that they're going to take it out this year.
Quite humble in this,
this panel. Especially Ali, yeah. What about yourself, Paul?
No, that Texan centenary.
Napier Tech,
Napier Tech centenary. Best looking MC you'll see going round at that function. Guest speaker, Sir Brian Lahore. So if you're a Texan, there's plenty of us scattered around. Get there.
And one for Steph. North Harbour Marist Colts in the final this weekend. Go North Harbour Marist. That is us on the breakdown for this week. Enjoy the footy this weekend.